Today is Saturday, September 16th, 2017. And today I'd like to share with you, looking at a koan that I've been thinking about as we're coming into the fall. And I've noticed that our backyard, our deck is starting to really get littered with leaves, dying and dead leaves. Just to make a little joke, I had thought maybe I would look at case 41 of the woman koan, Bodhidharma and Wei Ke, because it's got a line in it, he had only one disciple and even he was a cripple. But I figured, well, my arm's only in a sling, let's not push it. So we'll take a look instead at Hekigan Roku, case 27, Yun Men, umnon in Japanese, exposes his body to the golden breeze. A monk asked Yun Men, "How is it when the trees wither and the leaves fall?" Yun Men answered, "Body exposed in the golden breeze." So let's take a little look at who is Yun Men. We've encountered him, of course, before. And I'm going to read to you a little bit of the bio in Nelson Foster Roshi's The Roaring Stream, New Zen Reader, edited by Nelson Foster and Jack Shoemaker, with an introduction by Robert Aitken Roshi. So, his dates, Yun Men, are 864 to 949. And Nelson Foster Roshi writes, many consider Yun Men Wenyan the last great genius of Chan. Keen-witted and sharp-tongued, he taught with a passion that can still be felt in his words. When read, they scorch your eyeballs. Heard, they just make your ears drop off. At a time when the Chan school was slipping into a retrospective mood, inclined to collect, codify, and preserve accomplishments of the past, Yun Men, again Japanese is unmon, pressed enthusiastically ahead, discovering new means to teach the ancient way. He too prized the stories of the old masters, but when he took them up, he always gave them a new twist. Yun Men trained with eminent descendants of both Matsu and Shirdo. First, in ancestor Ma's wing of the school, he studied with the unusual teacher Muchu Dao Tsung, a successor of Wangpo. Head monk in Wangpo's assembly at the time, Lin Ji held down a cushion there. At the time that Lin Ji held down a cushion there, Muchu, Bokushu in Japanese, had quit the monkhood as well as the monastery by the time Yun Men caught up with him. Aged and flinty, he made himself scarce, and only the extremely persistent could get in his door, that is the door of his doksan room, briefly. Legend has it that the old layman ended his first meeting with Yun Men by literally slamming the door on him, at once crushing his leg and opening his mind. So Yun Men was said to have had a broken leg, somewhat crippled leg. Ah, well, we do have a thematic connection now. Hooray. Not entirely ignorant. Judging by the amount of ground Yun Men covered in the 17 years after leaving Muchu, he cannot have sustained the crippling injury that this late tale alleges, but it does vividly convey the vigor of Muchu's instruction. At the old teacher's direction, Yun Men went next to Elephant Bone Mountain, where he came beneath the cudgel of the ever-demanding Shuifeng, successor in the 5th generation of Shirdo's line. By present-day humanistic standards, the ruthless training he received under these teachers may seem all wrong, but in medieval Chinese apprenticeships, and in Chan study in particular, it was considered a master's ultimate kindness. Let me read a few things to you. Oh, here's an important. So about Yun Men, A record kept by his juniors, one of the most quickly produced and best authenticated documents from Chon's heyday, affords a chance to watch Yun Men at work. Full of fire and creativity, he applies to his disciples every tool in the ancestral toolkit and a few others rarely have ever used before. His one-word answers on behalf of the audience, alternative responses to old sayings, and utilization of mime are especially original. His voluminous record was gathered and published within 86 years of his death, no mean feat in an age of woodblock printing, and it had an extraordinary impact on the Chan world, thanks partly to an accident of timing. In the following 200 years, all three of the great koan collections, Blue Cliff Record, Piyin Lu in Chinese, Hekiganroku, Japanese, the Book of Equanimity, Shoyoroku, and the Gateless Barrier, Wumen Kwan, Muman Kon in Japanese, would be prepared, and their authors must have had Yunmen sayings at their elbow. Of all the Chan masters, none appears more often in these collections than he, though Zhao Chu runs a close second. A quote from Yun Men that Roshi Kapleau particularly loved, and I believe I have it right when it was Yun Men, is he said about the birth of the Buddha, and I think this appears in John Wu's The Golden Age of Zen, which is where Roshi Kapleau found it, but he just loved it. And the quote was, it said mythically, when the Buddha was born, the infant, baby, newborn Buddha, he raised one hand up to the heavens, the other down to the earth, said above the heavens, below the heavens, I'm the only one, and then took 7 steps. And lotus flowers appeared under his feet at each of the steps, supporting him. And supposedly, Yun Men said in response to this, if I'd been there, I would have knocked that baby to the ground, cut him to pieces, and fed his body to the dogs. This would be a way of bringing some real peace and tranquility into the world. Roshi Kapleau just loved that. So, of course, you have to see as a central point, lest we think dicing people up and feeding them to the hounds is a good idea. So some koans of Yun Men's we should be aware of, just to give a flavor of what his general way of working with students was. So these are all from Hekiganroku. He does appear in the Wumen Kwan as well, but these are, I think, really pretty immediate. They're one-liners. A monk asked Yun Men, what is the teaching that Shakyamuni preached throughout his life? Yun Men answered, one teaching in response. One teaching in response. And that's Hekiganroku 14. Hekiganroku 39. A monk asked Yun Men, what is the pure body of reality? Yun Men said, flowering hedge. The monk asked, what is it like when one goes on in such a way? Yun Men said, golden-haired lion. Hekiganroku 50. A monk asked Yun Men, what is the dust particle samadhi? Samadhi, in other words, that's so complete, even the grains of dust are present. Yun Men replied, rice in the bowl, water in the bucket. Rice in the bowl, water in the bucket. Hekiganroku 60. Yun Men held out his staff to the assembled monks and said, this staff has transformed itself into a dragon and swallowed up the universe. Mountains, rivers, the great earth, where are they to be found? Hekiganroku 62. Yun Men said to the assembled monks, between heaven and earth, through space and time, there is one treasure hidden in the mountain of form. Pick up a lamp and go into the Buddha hall. Take the temple gate and place it on the lamp. Of course, the temple gate is a you've ever been to Japan or seen pictures of the old temples, monasteries, it's like 3-story. It's high. It's huge. There's 3 entrance gates. One is never used. It's for the emperor. I don't remember which one that is. And then a gate on either side, or it's one of the side entrance kind of doorways through the gate. But the gate is huge, and usually there's a second floor where there are all kinds of Buddhas and figure like halls, a big hall up there. What was that monastery where Harada Roshi had trained, Rose, that we visited? Nanzenji had a big temple gate, didn't it? Yeah. We were there last spring. So the temple gate's immense, and Yunmen says, pick up a lamp and go into the Buddha hall, take the temple gate and place it on the lamp. Hekiganroku 86, Yunmen said to the assembly, everyone has his own light, but when you try to see it, you cannot. Everything is darkness. What is everybody's light? He answered himself, saying, the temple storeroom, the tower gateway. He also said, a good thing isn't as good as nothing. Yamada Roshi says that compared to Yunmen, even the words of Hakuin Zenji, who was brilliant and a dynamic writer, as well as a Zen master of monumental realization and ability, his words appear a bit muddy compared to Yunmen's. Yamada Roshi says, but read a statement of Yunmen's, and it is like looking at the clear blue sky without a single cloud in it, transparent, absolutely clear, not a smidgen of self-awareness, nothing at all fully exposed, fully expressed, ordinary and resplendent beyond all words, and yet not separate from them. So once a monk came to Yunmen and asked, how is it when the trees wither and the leaves fall? Yunmen immediately answered, body exposed in the golden breeze. Case Hekiganroku case number 83, Yunmen once said to his assembly, the ancient Buddha and the pillar merge. What kind of spiritual activity is this, or is that? No one answered, so he answered himself for them. Clouds gather over the southern hills. Rain falls on the northern mountains. The same intimate golden breeze is blowing, in these words of Yunmen's as well, out of the same realm, touching nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is, as Wallace Stevens puts it in his poem, The Snowman, which I hope you all know, but if you don't, let me read it to you. One must have a mind of winter to regard the frost and the boughs of the pine trees crusted with snow, and have been cold a long time to behold the junipers shagged with ice, the spruces rough in the distant glitter of the January sun, and not to think of any misery in the sound of the wind, in the sound of a few leaves, which is the sound of the land, full of the same wind that is blowing in the same bare place for the listener who listens in the snow, and nothing himself beholds nothing that is not there, and the nothing that is. Bodhidharma, touched by that breeze, when asked by the emperor for the highest teaching, answered, vast emptiness and nothing to be called holy. Aren't you a holy man? Asked the emperor. I don't know, answered Bodhidharma. The emperor was nonplussed. Please don't misunderstand Bodhidharma's words. He wasn't saying, gosh, I'm at a loss here. I better find out who I am. Going back to our case, what is the monk asking Yunmen? And what are his words pointing to? Where's he coming from with his question about withering trees and falling leaves? It could be something quite direct, simple, even straightforward. Life is full of loss. How do I deal with it? Does the Dharma offer refuge? In short, my tree is withering. My leaves are falling. Help! If that's what's up, impermanence is no longer theoretical for this monk, no longer something on a list of things a Zen Buddhist is supposed to believe. Yeah, impermanence, I understand that. Check. What's next? Rather, it's now my eyesight isn't what it used to be. I don't hear as well as I did either. My bones creak when I get up after sitting. I can no longer eat the spicy foods I used to enjoy and hardly sleep through the night anymore. My doctor says I've got to get my cholesterol down. How do I find peace in the midst of all this? He comes to Yun Men, who says, body exposed in the golden breeze. We all know about this, but how will we actually find peace when the chips we've gathered start falling from our hands? Where does it end? Will the grave, our final resting place on this earth, bring us peace at last? Will our good deeds get us into heaven, where we then can rest at ease at last? Or what? Is body exposed in the golden breeze nice poetry? Is it reassuring? What's Yun Men saying? Emperor Wu, for one, the one who came to Bodhidharma, thought that the progressive path, the Buddhism of continually purifying karma, getting clearer and clearer, was going to save him. He translated sutras, built temples, created places of practice, wore Buddhist robes, fed monks, did all he could to create merit. Nothing wrong with that, is there? Only Bodhidharma took that away with vast emptiness. Nothing to be called holy. His way of presenting body exposed in the golden breeze. But this is a Zen monk standing before Yun Men, not a so-called worldly person. A Zen monk's task is the full realization, for the sake of all, of Anyuttara Samyak Sambodhi, full, complete, perfect enlightenment. So maybe he is asking something more, something like, oh teacher, when all is fallen away, when all personal entanglements, all duality, all self-centeredness, all self-involvement, all concepts, all ideas, all gains, all losses, all are complex trees withered, and all are leaves, green, gold, red, or orange fallen, drifted to earth. What's that like then, when all is empty and clear? Please show me. Give me an inkling, some insight, a clue. You're an enlightened teacher. Can you tell me what that's like? I really want to know. Yun Men responds, body exposed in the golden breeze. Of course, there's a problem. If the monk really wants to know, he has to let his trees wither. Let all concepts of who or what he and others are dry up. Let all the leaves fall and just practice this very breath, this count, this mu, this koan point. Even the Buddha wouldn't be able to do it for him. Doksan literally means going alone. We have to go alone into the fire, into the withering ourselves. Or maybe this monk has done it, has seen past his dying trees and his falling leaves and touched bare, empty ground. Now he's come to challenge the teacher's understanding, or maybe to clarify further, or go deeper, or maybe even just to brashly show off. All are possible. Hey, teacher, show me your realization. I've died the great death. All my leaves have fallen. The tree is withered. I want to see whether you can top that with your falling away, your own falling away from self-centeredness? Do you have it for real? I've heard a lot about you. Can you prove you've got it? Yunmen answers, body exposed in the golden breeze. Or maybe something darker, more poignant is happening here. Maybe this interchange came about when an earnest student on the path needed to run to his trusted teacher for help. It might be like that first instance of general impermanence we spoke about when we began, but more dharmically exacting and quite a bit more anguished. I won't spell it out, but maybe you've entered such an empty, barren place once or twice yourself. How did it feel? What was its flavor and tone? What's the monk talking about with withered trees and fallen leaves? How empty is it? What's the monk asking? What's missing for him? How does Yunmen help? Yunmen says, body exposed in the golden breeze. What is he saying? How does it work in each possible instance? Is it the same or different? Does Yunmen have one point in mind? Does he get the one true version of the monk's question right off the bat? Can we know? What is Yunmen's point? And even more intimately, what's his demonstration? How is body exposed in the golden breeze not just perfect, but elegantly so, sublimely so? And why is that wind golden? How does this speak directly to the monk's anguish, his human dilemma, his challenge, his practice realization and inquiry? Yunmen rides the question, rides the metaphor perfectly, meeting the monk's arrow point with his own. There is no gap, there is no distance, there is no separation, not because he's bridged it, but because there never was one from the start. Yunmen speaks from the original, undivided realm itself. What is the tone, the flavor of his response? How will we show this? Going alone in Doksan, one day, this challenge will be our own. Actually, it already is right now. Right now, our leaves are falling, leaving us with no cover. Our tree withering, leaving nothing substantial to cling to. Right now, we too, whether we even consciously know it or not, are already working on the fullest realization of practice, the practice of fullest realization. This is always the core of it. Right now, in this moment, is where we see body exposed in the golden breeze. It is also where Yunmen's genius turns out to be our own. Savoring Yunmen's words, all falls away. Like London Bridge, all falls down. Nothing remains. One day Prince Siddhartha Gautama walked out of his palace and ran smack into old age, sickness, and death, and was cut to the quick. All was taken from him. There was no longer a place to hide. No palace he could run back into. Gone, gone, entirely gone, as the Prajna Paramita says. All was gone. Total devastation. But right there also lay the heart, the very heart of perfect wisdom. How can this be? Devastation is the heart of wisdom? Is wisdom nihilism? That hardly seems adequate. It turns our life into a shaggy dog story, a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Signifying nothing? Wait! I'm catching a glimpse of something here. How about you? The legend adds something more. that that young prince, devastated and stunned as he was, then saw someone like a monk walking with dignity in that vast, barren, withered land he'd stumbled into. And with that, he found, not yet realization, but truly deep encouragement. Nothing stops the withering. In time, the ground will be littered with dead leaves. It would be an act of desperation, like someone taking arms against the sea, to try and paste those fallen leaves back on again one by one after they've dropped away. We can try. Plastic surgery may keep our neck firm for a while and our jowls from shaking like jello, but in the end is inevitable. Can the inevitable be fulfillment? It's not a trick, not a palliative, not even an answer. All answers eventually deconstruct, wither, dry up, and fail. Answers have to be remembered. That's their problem, which is never intimate enough. What remains? Ikkyu had a verse. When I tried to remember, I always forgot. Once I forgot, I never forget. Nor is it about acceptance, or even about going with the flow. So what is it? What is Yunmen talking about? Pushing further into the metaphor of the autumn, what body is Yunmen talking about? What body is exposed? That's the challenge. To come to know this will mean work on the mat, in the Doksan room, in Zazenkai and Sesshin, as well as in the events of our life. It will mean loss, trees withering, leaves falling for sure, but fall, after all, is also the time of harvest. Now and here, as fall is about to begin, we can almost feel, like the coming of rain, that ripeness is indeed all. Now we can be so very grateful that Yunmen says it so clear. Body exposed in the golden breeze. Blake once wrote, "What is the price of experience? Do men buy it for a song, or wisdom for a dance in the street? No, it is bought with the price of all that a man hath, his house, his wife, his children. Wisdom is sold in the desolate market where none come to buy, and in the withered field where the farmer plows for bread in vain." Inspiring, painful, deeply honest words that are biblical in reach. Words of the ancient prophetic voice crying in the wilderness. Dylan made it more modern and arch with his line in Visions of Johanna. Bankers' nieces seek perfection, expecting all the gifts that wise men bring. But 1,000 years ago, Yunmen had already knocked even their socks off with his one-line response to all the trials, issues, challenges of life, and the endless path of ongoing practice realization. He simply nails the truth. Great loss, great beauty, body exposed in the golden breeze.